Agile projects are really popular in the software development space, but there are so many other areas where an Agile approach can be really beneficial. Since this channel is all about demystifying analytics skills and careers, let's look at how you can use Agile Project Management for business analysts. We'll talk a little bit theoretical and then get into some of the practical matters around using this Agile approach. Your first thought when I say project management may be to go to what a project manager role typically does. Well, this is certainly project management in a very narrow sense. I think project management is really broader than that. We can each look at any work that we're doing as being small, defined little projects that we're working on. So if you're working on solving a business problem, that could be a project that you're managing. No, it's not to the extent of what an overall project manager does on a larger project or mid-size or even small projects, but it's still managing a certain set of work that needs to be executed. In some cases, when you're working as a business analyst, especially in particular roles or in smaller companies, you may also find that you're legitimately running small versions of projects in much the same way that a project manager would do. The way that I've described working as a business analyst in the past probably comes off more as a waterfall approach. In case you're not familiar with waterfall project management or program design, these are really projects that are focused on setting an end goal, defining all of your metrics along the way, all of your milestones along the way, defining all the work that's going to be done before you get into it. This is really great for highly inflexible or expensive to change processes or production activities. But the reality is most of our work in analytics isn't like that. Let's take an example where waterfall might work really well. If you're designing a new automobile, a new very expensive piece of equipment, changing that may be really expensive. Changing your line, changing your staffing potentially, getting all of the tooling in place for it, all of those are really expensive activities and it takes a lot of work to change. You probably don't want an Agile approach there when there is more iteration in the work. And this is why Agile is really popular in the software development space, because the costs, the hurdles, the issues if something needs to be modified are not that great. Maybe you lose a little bit of time, but you're creating an environment where you can iterate. So let's look at Agile Project Management for business analysts. Agile Project Management for business analysts makes a lot of sense. While you might be doing work that feeds into these really large projects, these things that are very hard to change or very expensive to change, the actual work you are doing is not that inflexible. And so you can take an Agile Project Management approach to it. By doing this, we're creating a lot of flexibility in our process and creating a lot of room for improved communication, which is at the heart of what a business analyst does. Certainly there's the analyzing piece, but a lot of that is in the context of working with stakeholders in the business, working with different clients, whether those are internal or external clients of your work. And so you have room to work in a very flexible way with that. From a practical perspective, Agile Project Management for business analysts will start out looking very much the same as a waterfall project management approach. You'll set an end goal of what you want to accomplish. You'll probably also look at what resources you're going to be utilizing and maybe even look at roughly what your time frame might be like. However, unlike with a waterfall approach and an Agile approach, your first focus will be what can I deliver in a very short time frame that I can then start to get feedback on. For a lot of Agile projects, this timeline tends to be 2 weeks, but you can make your sprints or your cycles of work any length that you really want. I generally wouldn't go a lot longer than 2 weeks because remember, what you're trying to do is iterate repeatedly and get that information back to people so that they can act on it. If you're working on a project as a business analyst where you're trying to create a report or maybe a dashboard for someone in the business to use, it's really helpful to understand what their needs are, but then give them an opportunity to give feedback along the way. way, rather than gathering those needs, those business requirements, and then having one big bang rollout of your solution when it's ready. Sometimes these make sense. If you're talking about something that's going to take you a few hours to do, it's probably not value added to iterate. But when you're looking at bigger things, the value of that iteration, those sprints, that agile approach becomes really helpful. Especially if you're looking at implementing something new, a lot of times people are really constrained by what they know. So it's fairly common, I would say it's more often than not the case, that when people ask you for something or state their problem, they also start stating a solution as part of that. And their solution may be a great one, but a lot of times it's not the best solution or the best solution that can be implemented within the other constraints that exist. So if you have that dashboard, for instance, maybe your starting point is gathering requirements from users, understanding what they want to accomplish, and then your first delivery to them is to mock up a dashboard of what that might look like. So this could be actually in a dashboarding tool, something like Power BI or Tableau, or it could just be something sketched up on a PowerPoint slide or on paper. I think that there's a lot of value in doing it outside of that dashboarding environment to start with, because you're really focused on the solution and not so much on exactly how you implement that in the tool that you're using. I think this is where whiteboarding or drawing on paper or sketching out on a slide is really helpful, because you're not stuck in, do I have all of the right data sources already? Do I have things set up in the right way? People don't get caught up in what the data your charts are showing may be, because that is sometimes a challenge for people to see past the actual numbers and look at just the design. So if you eliminate the numbers entirely and just have the sketched out design, you sometimes create more flexibility in people's mind to look at what those different solutions might look like. Then once you have that set up and you get some feedback, then you take it to the next step. You start defining maybe things a little bit more specifically. What are the data sources that I might need? Where am I going to get information from? You start pulling that in and going through those loops. If you're defining a dashboard that's interactive, then maybe your next iteration is setting up what different filter options that you're giving to people. This is going to look a lot different depending on the project. And this could be something that's a dashboard for an executive to use, that they're going to access it maybe less frequently, or it could be something that somebody's using in their day-to-day job. That's also important. Your audience is a bit important. Maybe with an executive, you do fewer iterations, but you have more buy-in at each stage. You cover more information at each stage because you're looking more so to give them the final result with a few checkpoints along the way, versus someone that's using your information or your output frequently. They might want to be a little more involved in the process. It might make them more comfortable with what you're doing. It might make them trust the data more. So there's a lot of value add there. You get that stakeholder buy-in, you get more frequent communication. And with Agile, the idea is not that every iteration is perfect, but that because you're getting that feedback often, you can then make changes to what you've done before you get too far into it. So you're not wasting a lot of effort if things change. We all inherently make assumptions in the work we do, regardless of whether we intend to or not. So getting that feedback, having that communication helps confirm that the assumptions we've made are good ones. Is the output giving people what they need? Does the design make it easy to understand the information? Is there actionable insight that they're getting? Not every report or dashboard or piece of work you're going to produce is going to be actionable. However, it's really great if you focus on making things as actionable as possible. When people look at information, they should be guided to, what should I do based off of this? So that's something else that you can iterate upon. And over time, things will change. And that's where Agile is perfect. So you may get to the end of what's thought to be that one project, let's say a big dashboard implementation. And a year from now, that dashboard may need changes. 3 months from now, that dashboard may need changes. The beauty of Agile is it sets you up to look at the future as being different than the present. It sets you up that, yes, we're going to change. Of course, course, when it comes to things involving data, we're going to evolve over time. We're going to grow our knowledge. We're going to grow our capabilities. And we don't want to set ourselves up to be really inflexible to the future being different. Look at all of the companies who had lots of probably really great predictions in place prior to 2020. And what happened then? A lot of them became not so valid anymore. The environment changed, information changed, conditions changed that were largely outside of people's control. And so keeping that agile approach, that agile mindset really goes a long way in making you an effective business analyst. If you want to learn more about business analyst work or want more content on agile, leave me a comment down below the video. Thank you so much for watching.